because of sin. Sin caused death. Interesting, isn't it? It is said that the theological term hamarology, sin is the abstract, and that is reiterated and repeated for certainty and assurance, as Pharaoh's dream was. It is sin. It is sin. And thus sin is sinful or a sinner. Sin causes us to be sinners. We're not sinners. How am I going to say this? We're not sinners because we sin. We sin because we're sinners. Because I'm a sinner, I sin. Drugs didn't make me a sinner. Being a sinner caused me to use drugs. Being a sinner causes me to sin against a holy God. It is nothing else but sinning and sinful sin. Sinful sin. Sinful sin. What is the worst kind of sin? It's sinful sin. In verse 17, who has Romans 7?
I do.
Sorry, I don't want you to read. You have Richard, you have, I'm just kidding.
I do.
Romans 7.
What?
Romans 7.
Romans 7:17.
Now, then it is no more not I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me.
Yeah. When I was in seminary, I had to read that, and I messed that up so bad. Can you read all that without missing a word? I couldn't. Sin is what? Read it again. Read the first phrase.
Now it is no more I that do it,
but sin that's
well,
sin that's in me. I don't sin, but sin in me that sins. And verse 20. Go ahead.
Now, if I do that, I would not. It is no more
I that do it,
but sin that dwelleth in me.
It's sin that dwells in me that causes me to sin. Sin is the most horrible sinfulness that's in us. And he says in verse 20, it is not I, but sin, as if it was a person. Sin was treated, the person in me is sin, as if it was a pronoun, it was a noun. Unless we may read it as some do, the sinner might become sin. This is the same sense as the objection made in verse 7, is the law sin? The law is not sin. That is, it is criminal and guilty. But however we read it, and we're sure of this, that it denotes sin that's in us is malignant, it is persistent, it is the precautious nature and the operation of sin, its own name being the worst that can be given to it. What is the worst thing that's in us is sin. What is the worst disease in us is called sin. You say, well, I thought it was cancer. Cancer is curable. Some of it is. Cancer can destroy you. Sin is even worse than that. You can develop cancer and still go to heaven. Cancer can cause havoc in your life, and it can cause all kinds of problems in your life. Sin makes you a sinner. And that is the worst disease that anybody can ever have, is to be a sinner, because a sinner will cause you to lose your life forever and eternity. Sin is it's the plague of all plagues. If this were not meaningful enough, it is so exceedingly above measure, exceedingly are in the highest degree sinful. It is the highest degree of sinfulness. Extraordinary. The highest degree of speaking. If you say to a person, you are a sinner, it's worse than saying you are an homosexual. There's no sin behavior that can be compared to the plague of sin. It is beyond expression, sinfulness. Sinfulness. You have a sinful nature. Let me illustrate the scope and meaning of all this by a common occurrence. It is as if a criminal said to the judge, "Oh my Lord, how cruel and unmerciful you are to condemn me to die." No one that's condemned to die agrees that he should die. They will fight death with every possible. They'll even confess that they killed those people in Virginia. That guy confessed that he killed those two so he could escape the death penalty. So he's given forth death penalties without any chance of, he didn't want to die. It is sin. If you had not sinned, I would not have condemned you. 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 9. Had you not sinned, you would not have died. 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 9. If I would not have condemned, for the law is not against the righteous. The law is not against the righteous. The law is against the sinful. Again, such there is no law, Galatians 5:23, no condemnation for you. If there was no law, if there had been no law of God, there would not have been any condemnation to judge you by. If God not had set a law before you, then you would not have known when you would have sinned. God didn't give anything to the angels. God didn't give them any law to keep even after they sinned. They were judged. So God set forth His law that tells you what sin is and the means whereby you can repent and have faith and be saved. Look, you may then in me, as in the grass, see what a deadly, destructive, and killing thing your sin is. So then, unless you are convinced in your spirit that you have committed the greatest sin of all sin, you can never repent of what you don't feel is sinful. Well, I don't see that I'm doing anything harmful to God. I don't purposely do anything against God. I don't like Him or dislike Him. He could be or not be. Romans chapter 3, verses 19 through verse 21. So by the commandment, sin appears to be a desperate, malignant thing. The proper, true, and only cause of man's condemnation, and death is sin. If it wasn't for sin, there would be no condemnation and there would be no death. Adam and Eve would still been living. The angels would still have been doing their thing. But sin caused the death of all mankind. God never created Adam and Eve to die. But they died physically and they died spiritually because of sin. I'm just trying to say with you, well, the worst thing you do is that you drink beer or you commit adultery. Nah, that's not the sin that causes, that's not the sin that causes you to go to hell. It's the sin that's in you. It's because you're a sinner.
Somewhere I have written down the most 7 deadly sins somewhere.
Yes, and that's a sermon that preachers like to preach.
I wrote it down somewhere.
Yeah, but that, that's good preaching, but for Bible. The deadliest sin the deadliest sin is sin itself. It creates the condition. The deadliest thing that sin can do is cause you to go to hell. The deadliest sin. There's no sin that's worse. So you say, man, I've seen the wickedness of man, and we're not to do that. But that doesn't. Drinking beer doesn't send anybody to hell. Smoking a cigarette doesn't send anybody to hell. Gossiping don't send anybody to hell. What sends a person to hell is sin that's in you that you got to get rid of before you can be saved. You've got to get rid of the sin in you before you can be saved. A person says, well, I'll stop drinking, I'll stop smoking, I'll start going to church, well, I'll have one wife, I'll even get married. What do you think about that? Blah, blah, blah. And you still have sin in you. You can be perfect on the outside and not do anything wrong, pay your taxes, and from that you look perfect, but you still have that ingredient in you. It's called sin. And until that sin is dealt with, you will go to hell. So trying to get a person to quit drinking and quit gossiping and quit not going to church is not the issue. The issue is get him saved. Or let him know he's a sin, that he's in sin. So from this brief yet account of the text and context, the following truths are deductible. Right? Then I got that on your notes. I'm only page 3. Well, now back on page 94. Number 1, the law of God as a whole and is ever in every part is good. What's also verse 12? 7:12. 7:12. I'll let you read one little verse, David. I could call on John, but now she turned the page, right?
Yeah, I was looking up verse now.
Well, quit doing that. Listen to what I'm saying.
I'm listening to
I know you're bipolar. I mean, not multitasking. Yeah.
Like the first one.
7:12.
7:13.
What do you